The inquiry into claims of abuse by British troops in Iraq is to be scrapped. There were more than 3,000 claims, but not a single prosecution. MPs call it an unmitigated failure.
This will be a huge relief to hundreds of British troops who've had these quite unfair allegations hanging over them.
Also tonight, cancelled operations in the NHS in England hit a 15-year high. Trump loses in court again over his travel ban on mainly Muslim countries, and bet you look good on the dance floor, the study that could get your groove back.
This is the ITV Evening News with Charlene White.
Good evening. The government tonight caved into pressure and scrapped a controversial inquiry into alleged abuse by British troops in Iraq. The Defence Secretary said the vast majority of the 3,000 cases will now be closed. MPs had criticised it for a litany of failures, which included paying solicitors to chase cases, some of which were complete lies. From Westminster, here's our political correspondent, Carl Dinnan.
The Iraq Historic Allegations team had become a nightmare for those caught up in its investigations and an enduring problem for the Ministry of Defence. This evening, the Defence Secretary announced he was shutting IHAT down, its caseload having fallen from 3,000 cases to just 20.
Most of these allegations now fall away following the striking off of the dishonest solicitor, Phil Shiner, as a result of the evidence that we put before the Solicitors' Disciplinary Tribunal. There will be a handful of remaining allegations which will now be put over to the Service Police to investigate in the normal way.
Phil Shiner was the solicitor who had brought much of the original caseload. Last week, he was struck off after the Ministry of Defence brought forward evidence that he had encouraged false claims against British troops. The closure of the £34 million Iraq investigation team was welcomed by the MP who had campaigned hardest against it, but he still wanted to know why it had taken so long.
I think the whole process has been a farce from the start. People gave Phil Shiner far too much credibility. The MOD has got a lot of questions to answer.
Some of the most serious allegations had surrounded the 2004 Battle of Danny Boy. Brian Wood won the Military Cross for his part in the encounter.
To be questioned for the brave, actions that we've done on the battlefield, and our integrity also is in question. It's just a little bit heartbreaking, to be honest.
What does that do to you when you're trying to recover from all the things that have gone on when you've been in battle?
I can only speak for myself, but it did sort of push me back into like a darkish hole that I was in.
This evening, the Ministry of Defence said 90% of the investigations into allegations of abuse from Afghanistan are also being dropped. Now, none of this is to suggest that there were never any proven allegations of abuse against British troops in Iraq or Afghanistan. There have been a few cases where soldiers have been convicted of quite serious things. However, it does seem to indicate that it was on nothing like the scale, nowhere near it, alleged by Phil Shiner and others.
Carl, thanks very much. There was further evidence of the crisis in England's NHS today, with a number of cancelled operations reaching their highest level since 2001. Tens of thousands of patients were affected last year, and it doesn't just cause them extra stress, but risks lives as well, as our political correspondent Paul Brand reports.
In a week when the NHS is breaking all the wrong records, yet another sign of the strain on this service and on the patients who need it, with cancelled operations now at a 15-year high.
Where you want your toy? Look.
James Reeves is worried he'll miss out on more than just his surgery. Doctors say problems with an artery could kill him at any moment, but twice his procedure's been cancelled, once when he was already waiting in hospital.
Every night I go to sleep, I wonder if I'm going to wake up in the morning, be honest with you, because it could If it ruptures in my sleep, I'm a goner in my sleep. Whee! Yeah, go to mummy now. And my kids worry. The kids worry. They thought it was all going to be over 1st of Feb. It was going to prolong my life with what they were going to do, and they cancelled it. 8 hours I sat up there. 8 solid hours.
That agony is becoming increasingly common. Last year, more than 82,000 operations were cancelled in England, a 16% rise on 2015. And more than 6,500 of those patients had to wait more than 28 days before being booked back in.
It's unacceptable to cancel patients' operations on the day of surgery. First of all, it's quite an emotional time to be in hospital and quite stressful, and this will exacerbate the problem. But also there's concern about delays about the outcome of their condition. And in cancer, this is particularly worrisome.
Surgeons are only the latest to raise concerns. Just yesterday, A&E's also reported record waiting times as the NHS struggles with demand. And those who campaigned to end the worst of care, symbolised by the Mid-Staffordshire scandal, say they're now worried about a repeat.
Really concerned that there could be another Mid-Staffs out there. From what we're hearing from all over the country throughout the NHS, from patients and staff, is that it's in a crisis. And likely that there is going to be another Mid-Staffs.
The government points to record funding and says generally the NHS is coping, even if patients like James Reeves are left feeling like they're not. Paul Brand, ITV News, Westminster.
In the past few minutes, Donald Trump has said he will do something very rapidly after losing another court case over his controversial travel ban. The president's considering his options after judges blocked his plans. And there are reports tonight that his White House team is considering rewriting that executive order. Our Washington correspondent Robert Moore has the latest.
The president was hiding any fury he is feeling at the court ruling, greeting the Japanese Prime Minister with an awkward half-embrace. Inside the Oval Office, there was no reference to last night's humiliating rejection of his executive order. Only warm smiles, with the president clearly calculating what the firm handshake might mean for the round of golf the two leaders are playing tomorrow.
Strong hands.
Just a few minutes ago, Mr. Trump said there would be other security measures soon.
Safety is a primary reason. One of the reasons I'm standing here today is the security of our country. The voters felt that I would give it the best security. So we'll be doing something very rapidly having to do with additional security for our country. You'll be seeing that sometime next week. In addition, we will continue to go through the court process, and ultimately I have no doubt that we'll win that particular case.
But at airports across the United States and beyond, the court decision had an immediate impact on travelers and refugees.
I love you, America. I love you, America. Salam, salam.
My dream, America, my dream, yeah.
America is your dream?
Yeah.
Instead of being detained or put back on flights, they were allowed to enter America. Maha had flown in from Iran, not knowing which way the judges had ruled, or whether her entry visa would even be respected.
What would you say to the judges?
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Immigration and human rights lawyers were ecstatic.
I'm incredibly excited. I wanted to walk into the airport and just start screaming, like, we won, we won.
Within just a couple of hours of the court ruling, and these Iraqis have been allowed in. America's door still open to refugees, thanks to those 3 federal judges.
The judges are being hailed by liberals as heroes for keeping the presidency in check. But Trump's top advisors see the ruling as a terrible blunder, increasing the chances of a terrorist attack.
And the nation's safety is at stake here.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
It is now exactly 3 weeks since Donald Trump took office, and 2 weeks since he signed the controversial and now invalid travel ban. His authority is taking a legal battering, but he's promising to fight this setback every step of the way.
Well, Robert, the president says he'll do something rapidly. So what are his options?
Well, option one, Charlene, is that he appeals this decision to the Supreme Court. But that's, pretty risky stuff because he could easily lose there too. And that would be humiliating because he's often said that even a bad high school student could see that his executive order is legal and valid. I think the other option, perhaps the likelier one tonight, is he simply abandons the executive order, kind of abrogates it, tries to redraft it in a narrower form. But look, this is a president who's famously reluctant to admit defeat or weakness in any form, so that too would be humbling and certainly would represent, I think, an early and pretty startling political defeat for him.
Thanks, Robert. Well, if you go to our Facebook site, Robert will be live taking your questions on Donald Trump. Government plans to limit the number of child refugees coming to the UK are unlawful, the High Court was told today. Campaigners are hoping to overturn the decision to end the DUB scheme. It comes as growing numbers of migrants are camping out in Calais, hoping to be allowed in. Martha Fairley spoke to one teenage refugee who fears he may now miss out.
14-year-old Jonah paid a high price to escape Eritrea as a persecuted Christian.
$500.
His father was shot dead, and it took him nearly 4 years to travel on his own through Africa and Europe, seeking refuge in the UK.
Very cold, very hungry.
ITV News last met Jonah as the jungle in Calais was being shut down. He thought his wristband had identified him as a child on his own and at risk, and he'd be going to Britain under the DUB scheme. Instead, his bus took him to a reception centre in Le Havre. Now it too has closed and he's back in Calais, being supported by British lawyers who say he should still be brought to the UK, despite this week's announcement by the Home Office.
The end of DUBs has closed another door in the face of vulnerable child migrants, but it hasn't stopped their determination to get into the UK. And so every night they come here up these well-worn tracks, willing to take even greater risks to cross the border.
Desperate children had been sheltering in these squalid conditions until the police closed their squat. Charities say there are hundreds of unaccompanied children here with nowhere safe to go. Children like Jonah, who want our politicians to keep their word.
Please, you're keeping promise.
Martha Fairley, ITV News, Calais.
Still to come on the ITV Evening News. Despicable and cruel, the military historian who stole a Dambusters logbook. And Save the Whales, the rescue operation in New Zealand. All those stories and more after the break. Welcome back. The daughter of a Dambuster hero has told ITV News how she'll never give up hope of finding her father's stolen logbook. Military historian Alexander Bateman claimed he needed Sergeant John Fraser's book for research, but never returned it. Today, Bateman was jailed for 2 years, with the judge branding it a despicable offence. Paul Davis reports.
Having travelled from her home in the United States, Cherlo Fraser arrived at court clutching photographs of her Dambuster father and desperate to get back his handwritten log that had been lost to a cruel deception.
My mom cherished that logbook, and what we value the most is upholding his memory.
And what a memory. As a member of 617 Squadron, Flight Sergeant John Fraser took part in the famous raid, dropping Barnes Wallace's bouncing bombs. Shot down, he was captured, but then had a role in the so-called Great Escape of Allied POWs. No wonder modern historian Alexander Bateman, seen here in a television documentary, wanted to see Sergeant Fraser's record of his war, but the tactics he used would land him in prison. The scam started 20 years ago when Alexander Bateman asked Sergeant John Fraser's widow if he could borrow the logbook for his research. But when asked for it back, Alexander sent the family an empty envelope in the post, claiming that it must have been lost. When that wasn't believed, he forged a Christmas card from Mrs. Fraser, giving himself permission to keep the logbook. Then in 2003, when his deception was investigated by the press, Alexander reported a robbery at his home in Harrow and said an intruder had taken it. The hero's daughter left court, having seen the historian jailed for 2 years, but without the cherished record to pass on to future generations.
To take the logbook and say, here children, look at this, you know, my future, my grandchildren, that's lost. And that's huge.
Sadly for his family, the whereabouts of Flight Sergeant Fraser's Dambusters logbook remains a mystery. Alex Bateman is sticking to his story that it was stolen while in his care, though a jury and today a judge have refused to believe that.
To a collector, it could be worth £10,000. To a family heading home empty-handed, that record's value is incalculable. Paul Davis, ITV News, North London.
More than 1 million Scottish Power customers will see their energy bills go up after it announced a 7.8% rise. But British Gas, which was also expected to increase tariffs, said it will be freezing gas and electricity prices until August. A man and woman have died in a house fire in Manchester. 4 children aged between 10 and 17 and another man were also injured and are being treated in hospital. Cocaine with an estimated street value of £50 million has been washed up on 2 beaches in Norfolk. A number of holdalls containing the Class A drug were found by a member of the public. And the family of Tara Palmer Tompkinson has said she passed away peacefully in her sleep. The former socialite was found dead at her flat in London on Wednesday. There's a race against time to save the last few pilot whales who are still stranded on a New Zealand beach. Many have been rescued, but around 300 have died in one of the worst incidents in living memory. Sally Lockwood reports.
It's a distressing sight. Powerful animals lying helpless, and there are hundreds of them. The pilot whales became stranded overnight in New Zealand's Golden Bay. By dawn, only 100 had survived.
This is the 3rd largest mass stranding that we've recorded in our history, and so it's a very large one. Logistically, it's a massive undertaking.
Volunteers from around the country have joined the rescue effort, pouring water over them to keep them cool. Some singing to keep them calm.
Oh, it's amazing, and there are people from all over the world. Anyone who's within Kui has heard about this. They've just come over. We brought 3 hitchhikers over who just said they wanted to come here and do whatever they could.
Scientists say it could be the whales became disorientated, but at high tide, rescuers created a human wall to help guide them back out to sea. A sense of relief that at least some had been saved. Sally Lockwood, ITV News.
And finally, if you're planning on throwing some shapes on the dance floor this weekend, scientists in Northumbria think they may well have the answer. They studied women who know how to shake it and singled out the secrets of a disco diva. And as Richard Pelle reports, when it comes to being a dancing queen, it seems that the hips really don't lie.
However merry you might get on your Friday night, you surely won't be able to achieve this. You probably shouldn't try to do that. And let's hope you never ever dream of trying. According to psychologists, the best movers among women are the hip swingers and the arm wavers. They are rated the dancing queens, while the study found the disco disasters are those who sway slowly and fix their feet firmly to the floor.
I think when you dance in a small way like that, it shows that you're shy, not very approachable and hard to talk to.
So how would you impress me?
I think you need to use your arms a bit more, swing the hips, just let it all go and have a good time, because everybody wants to feel happy, and that's exactly what dance does.
Understandably, those synchronising to the beat are deemed more attractive. More surprisingly, those with asymmetric movements are also.
So, Hannah, if you can just stand with your arms out.
In creating the computer-generated figures, every distinguishing feature from the dancers were removed.
Yeah, brilliant.
The result, an electronic insight into our subconscious.
It is highly likely that females are dancing not just to impress males, they're also dancing to show off to other females how good they are. In males, it's all about the upper body, the kind of shoulders, neck, head, chest. It's actually signalling the strength of the male. Stronger men are rated as being better dancers.
So there you go, whether you're throwing some shapes or just footloose and fancy-free, you can now do it in the most alluring manner. Richard Pallo, ITV News.
Well, I've been clubbing for years. I definitely know how to throw shapes on the dance floor. But if you want to see if you've got the right moves and what kind of dancer you are, then do go to our website at itv.com/news. But that's all for now. Our very own disco diva, Tom Bradby, is here at 10 o'clock. But for now, have a very good weekend. Goodbye.